You can sometimes tell when a paper has been reworded with AI to pass a plagiarism check because it leaves behind something called a tortured phrase, where a technical term is replaced with a synonym that doesn't exactly make sense, like lactose bigotry instead of lactose intolerance, kidney disappointment.
Where do we see this? Is how you can tell sometimes when some stuff has been translated from like another language, like a propaganda. It might have had to do with actually the Ukrainian plans that were leaked by whoever was talking to Witkoff. There'll be like a phrase that it doesn't really make sense in English, but it's like a really common phrase in Russian. So when it gets translated to English, if you're a Russian speaker and you are bilingual, you see it. Yeah.
If I could take you behind the scenes of what it's like to make videos for this channel, it would look a lot like this. It's editing clips, interviewing people, and lots of reading.
Wow.
That reading often starts with research papers. Research papers are the definitive format for scientists to communicate what they've learned about the world around us, and they're trustworthy thanks to a system. Researchers submit papers, editors assess it, experts review it, and journals publish it. But recently, some scientists have discovered that something very strange is happening with that system.
I found an avalanche of papers that look very similar kinds of titles, just different gene names and different cancers.
They were all the same structure, the same methods. The text felt the same when I read it, and I looked at it and I thought, this is crazy.
Other scientists noticed charts specific to one study that were copied and pasted onto another. Images from one study that showed up manipulated in another. Even pictures of tumors in study after study that were just rearranged versions of one original picture. You can see that the ruler has the same stains and shadows even though the institutions these papers came from are hundreds of kilometers apart.
This is not a small number of bad, irresponsible authors putting in low-quality research. This is an industrialized effort to mass-produce low-quality research for profit.
The entities behind that industrialized effort have become known as paper mills. They're sketchy businesses that make and sell fraudulent research papers and get them published in real journals. And the fraudulent papers they produce are becoming a bigger and bigger portion of all scientific literature, growing at a rate that is outpacing that of legitimate science, and making the paper mill industry tens of millions of dollars every year. Now, I'm not an academic. I've never written a research paper. I've never done a peer review, but I am a journalist who makes videos, and those videos rely on research. And that research needs to be good and rigorous and true. How concerned should I be that it isn't?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Going into this, I felt like I vaguely understood how an idea for a research paper becomes an actual published research paper, but not really. So I set out to understand that first. It all begins when an author submits a paper. That submission is assessed by an editor at a journal. The editor can then reject it or approve it for peer review, where fellow experts from that field evaluate the quality of the research. Depending on those peer reviews, the author might need to revise and resubmit the paper. Finally, after peer review, the editor can decide to accept or reject the paper, at which point it advances to production and publication. Paper mills hijack this process, and they do it by exploiting weaknesses in the system, starting with the researchers writing the papers.
There's always been a certain amount of bad behavior in the scientific community. People who maybe want to take shortcuts. And what we're seeing more and more now, though, is more and more pressure on academics to produce more and more outputs to justify their funding. And sometimes this gets called publish or perish.
Publish or perish. It's a phrase describing the pressure on academics to publish papers in order to advance in their career. Since universities want faculty to increase the institution's profile, they often incentivize publishing research by rewarding it with funding, promotions, or even cash bonuses. But those expectations sometimes fall on staff who don't have time to do research, or staff who aren't even researchers at all.
Those people may feel as if it's the only way that they can meet their employers' expectations is by engaging the services of someone who'll help them.
Engaging their services means paying a paper mill to get their name on a pre-written paper. Sometimes dozens of author names are crammed onto a single paper, each one an academic who paid to get their name there.
And of course, that creates a toxic kind of circle, because the more people that do that, the more anybody who doesn't do it is just going to fall behind.
But a paper mill
Like
doesn't
botting
just
for
produce
streamers.
a paper. It also guarantees that that paper will be published. So how does a paper mill successfully get a paper published in a real journal? There's evidence that some paper mills have bribed journal editors to ensure that papers get published, but often the papers slip through the cracks for a simpler reason. Some journals have their own pressure to publish because of how journals make money. Journals make money in one of two ways. One is closed access. In this model, institutions or individual readers pay to access journal articles.
Think about the ASUS card
Because these
16,
journals
15,
make
90?
money from
I don't know.
subscriptions,
It's just a
publishing
graphics
more
card, no?
papers isn't automatically better. Every additional paper costs the journal money to review, edit, and produce. That creates an incentive to publish fewer papers, and only ones they believe are high quality and worth paying for. Then there's open access. Here, readers don't pay to read articles. Instead, authors pay the journal a fee to publish their work. Large commercial publishers can make huge profits on these fees.
Every time you submit a paper, you probably have to pay an article processing charge of $2,000 or $3,000. I mean, this is a gold mine if you run a publishing business.
You know, it's like selling shoes or anything like that. The more units you can sell, the more you can earn.
So where closed access journals are incentivized to value quality, open access journals are incentivized to value quantity. And a growing percentage of all scholarly publishing is open access. Paper mills exploit the intersection of two things: the willingness of researchers to pay for papers that will help them get ahead, and the willingness of open access journals to accept papers that will make them money.
This is something that operates within the shadows. We know incredibly little about how these businesses are structured, how they operate. They operate in secret, but they also need to be found. So you can go on any website where services regularly get offered, or any social media, and you'll find these groups.
There are websites like the aptly titled Science Publisher Company, Telegram channels, and Facebook pages where individual paper mill representatives leave posts asking commenters to reply with their academic department for connections to fast index journals for publication. As Reese showed me all of these ways to contact a paper mill, one thing I realized is that paper mills aren't just selling authorship. They're ads for fake patents, fake books, fake awards, and citation manipulation, where paper mills artificially boost academics' ranking on sites like Google Scholar by uploading articles that reference their work. It just feels like such a huge breadth of services.
Exactly. The term paper mill does not really adequately describe the whole range of services that can be offered under the same roof. It's literally any possible thing that you can use to launder your reputation as an academic or otherwise is offered by these companies.
I was surprised at how sophisticated these operations seemed, and also kind of shocked at how easy it was to reach them. And it felt like it was time for me to see one of these operations up close. On Facebook, paper mill accounts typically left a WhatsApp number for more information. So I reached out to several of these numbers, posing as a researcher interested in publishing opportunities. I told them my department was ethics, and they all got back to me immediately, sending a menu of journals I could buy access to publish in and a list of fake paper topics I could buy authorship on. They quoted me a price, too. For just $395, I could be the first author listed on a paper published within a month. Right. But I still wanted to talk over the phone to a real person. So I asked one of them if I could give them a call. Hello, testing, testing. Okay, let's give this a shot. We've been playing phone tag for several days now, but I think we got him now. Hello? Hi, can you hear me okay? Hi, I'm sorry I missed your call earlier.
That's okay. So you've been trying to speak to me for the longest, yeah?
Yes, I've never kind of engaged with this sort of service before, so I just want to understand a little bit more about how this works.
Jesus.
Okay. So you want a paper written for you, right?
Correct.
Oh, you're okay.
Okay, that's okay. and it could also be published, right?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Is that correct? Right?
Yes, to get a paper written. That's correct. And how, I guess, is anyone going to know kind of on the journal side? I just want to understand, what is the journal?
Do you mean if there's a connection with the journal? Is that what you're trying to ask?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. There's a very good connection. So with the reviewers, so it's gonna be a smooth process. There's a connection with the reviewers.
Okay, so there's a guarantee of publishing.
Yes, sure, guarantee.
Okay, great.
The writing process, it's handled by the experts. So after writing, submit the paper. The paper is going to be submitted using your details. After that, the manuscript is handed over to the editor. That's the person we have a link with over there, the member of the board. Then you are going to be notified when the submission is successful. All reviews you would receive will be minor. There will be no major review. Trust me, given the fact that it's all minor review, the paper will pass. And we should get acceptance in little to no time. And once we get that, we proceed.
I guess I just wanted to know, do you have kind of previous examples that you can show me that you have done, just sort of the track record to know that this works?
Sure, yeah, sure. Why not?
That would be great.
Why not?
It's okay, sure. I'll send right away.
In terms of sort of the substance of the paper, the science itself, is that kind of... Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, bro.
Okay. Sorry, I lost you for a moment. I was just asking sort of about how the paper is made, how I think I keep losing you.
What's going on?
Call failed.
Uh-oh.
Okay, well, so we did eventually lose connection, but he sent me a whole bunch of samples of work that they have had successfully published via their connections at each of these journals. Artificial Intelligence and Narratology in Contemporary Francophone Digital Literature, examining the role of radiation risk perception in patient decision-making for diagnostic imaging procedures. Let's look that up on Google Scholar. Wow. It is actually there.
That seems kind of not
It's
good,
actually
no?
there under the
Like, that's a bad
Journal of
thing?
Radiography. It's just weird that I can read this and know that these are people that paid for it. Potential hazards, including the risk of radiation-induced cancer, cumulative higher doses, patients' perception significantly influence decisions. Like, this sounds real to me. This sounds like real science. God, this is so weird. It's weird seeing this on Google Scholar, like knowing that if I just happened to be working on something related to radiation risk perception, like this is on Google Scholar right now. I could find it. It could come up in my search and I could read it, not knowing that it's something that these people just paid for, and not knowing that a lot of the science here could be completely made up. That's crazy. I couldn't tell that the papers that my paper mill contact sent me were made by a paper mill. And I learned that that's actually a big part of the problem. Paper mill products are getting harder to catch. They used to give themselves away with sloppy photo manipulation or templatized titles where terms could be switched out to generate completely made up research.
If you go back, say, 5 to 10 years, that's what paper mills did. They cheated. They copied images. They made up stuff.
Oh
that was
God,
complete
please
nonsense.
reference AI. Now
But
with
in the
AI.
last 5 years, something changed.
What about the coom?
And you can see it when you look at the number of papers being published about public health data sets. These data sets contain massive amounts of information about population health. Researchers use them to track and understand diseases. And since 2023, the number of papers analyzing those public health data sets has skyrocketed, far past expectations, coinciding right with the launch of mainstream AI tools. It turns out that public health data sets are an ideal material for paper mills to use to churn out fake papers with AI. They're easy to access, and they contain huge amounts of information. You can pick any two factors and run an automated analysis comparing the relationship between those two things, and it gives you findings that may not be particularly significant, but nevertheless look like real science.
you're still cheating. You're still generating poor quality, misleading results, but the data are real. So when real scientists go and investigate them, it does appear to be there, and it's a more convincing product. And in that kind of environment, suddenly the bad actors are able to massively outproduce the good actors, the good scientists.
These are 5 different papers looking at the relationship between infertility and something called body roundness index. They were all accepted by different journals over the course of a year. Here's 6 more looking at chronic kidney disease and oxidative balance score. And these are 6 different studies looking at cardiovascular health and periodontitis. All of these were made with the same public health data set. You can sometimes tell when a paper has been reworded with AI to pass a plagiarism check because it leaves behind something called a tortured phrase, where a technical term is replaced with a synonym that doesn't exactly make sense, like lactose bigotry instead of lactose intolerance, kidney disappointment.
Where do we see this? Is how you can tell sometimes when some stuff has been translated from like another language, like a propaganda piece or whatever. The thing we were reading, I don't remember what it was, but it might have had to do with actually the Ukrainian plans that were leaked by whoever was talking to Witkoff. There'll be like a phrase that doesn't really make sense in English, but it's like a really common phrase in Russian. So when it gets translated to English, if you're a Russian speaker and you are bilingual, you see it. Yeah.
And instead of kidney failure or bosom.
Oh, we might have seen a paper when we were doing our COVID research too. Like instead of like severe acute respiratory for like SARS or whatever, you'll replace like instead of severe acute respiratory, it'll be like, I don't know, like horrendous short-term breathing or something. Like it'll be something where it's like, you're not supposed to, this is an abbreviation. Like why are you using a synonym or something else here? Yeah.
Disease instead of breast cancer. So AI is making paper mill products harder to catch. I still wanted to know though, what effect is all of this having on science in general?
You know, people often ask me, like, well, which fields do you trust or not trust? I said, the ones I trust are the ones that have a reasonable rate of retraction. If they have too much, I don't know. I have to sort of sift through it. If they don't have any, I don't trust them.
It is a freezing cold day in New York. I'm outside NYU getting ready to talk to Ivan Aransky. Nice to meet you. How are you? Ivan is one of the people behind Retraction Watch, a website that tracks scientific articles that have been retracted from the...
What is your PC setup, dude? What do you want me to say? I have a strong AMD processor. I think I've got a 5090 on my gaming computer. I've got SSDs, RAM, motherboard. What do you want to know? Todd the Rod.
Literature. Papers might be retracted for all kinds of reasons like fraudulent data or plagiarism or significant errors. And over the last 20 years, that number of retractions has been going up.
In 2010, there were about 400 retractions. 2024, there were, I think it was about 5,500. It's a big increase over time. It more than outpaces the growth in papers being published. In other words, there's something happening, and paper mills definitely have a part in it. At Retraction Watch, we have a leaderboard of people with the most retractions in the world. The guy at the top actually has 230 papers that have been retracted, and there are 5 people on the list with at least 100 papers that have been retracted. Most scientists have not even retracted one paper.
Is there kind of like I asked Ivan if there were any particularly notorious retractions, a flawed paper that had a major negative impact before it was taken down.
The most common example is the Andrew Wakefield et al. Study in The Lancet in 1998, claiming that autism and vaccines are linked. This paper, again, was published in 1998, was not retracted until 2010. You know, that paper has had immense impact. There's a paper that used as the basis of one of the main theories about Alzheimer's disease. And in fact, it turned out the images were manipulated. And this was about 20 years ago now.
The studies that Ivan is talking about were notoriously bad science.
Wait, is the
20 years ago now.
The studies
does the framing here make this guy seem like he has really small arms and hands?
That Ivan is talking about were notoriously bad science that changed the course of research and medicine for years. But as we kept talking, he told me that he doesn't actually see paper mill products in that same category.
Paper mills, you know, you can buy authorship from a paper mill, you can buy an entire paper, you can have your citations boosted. So it's sort of manipulating the system rather than manipulating the data, which is what has happened with these massively cited papers. And a lot of them just aren't very important papers.
a lot of them just aren't very important papers.
Wow.
I set out to figure out if I can trust the studies that I find on the internet, and by going down the paper mill rabbit hole, I became convinced that I couldn't. But talking to Ivan, I realized that paper mills don't necessarily produce impactful bad science. They just flood the scientific literature with junk. And that means while they'll never really be a problem for a casual reader like me, for actual experts, the people who are trying to read every new study that comes out in their area of expertise, they can be devastating.
When we have papers en masse saying, oh, look at that gene. That gene's going to cure liver cancer. No, wait a minute. These two together could cure liver cancer. Or, oh, no, these other three. This is a tremendous distraction.
In a November 2025 paper, Jennifer estimated that nearly 12% of papers in top cancer research journals are likely paper mill products. One cancer researcher applying for a grant to study a certain gene was turned down because the field was crowded, when in reality, it was just crowded with paper mill products.
Just makes it much more difficult for researchers to know really where they should be focusing their efforts. That's what these papers destroy.
And paper mills don't just hurt the work being done by researchers, they also discredit science more broadly.
You see the anti-science types sort of seizing on this. We had a creationist podcast review our recent paper, and they were basically like, see, you just can't trust anything that's coming out of the scientific establishment.
We can't always trust the science because science is done by scientists who are flawed, thus the science can be flawed as well.
But we can trust our perfect, infallible creator and his authoritative word.
That's true. How many papers has God retracted?
Want to defend the scientific enterprise. Science as a process is our most potent engine for societal good.
Science is a really important activity. It's a great human activity, and most scientists and most people working in research are honest and trustworthy. And I think it's for that reason that we really need to take this paper mill problem seriously, because it is about making sure that the people who are in the system for the right reasons can do the best research that they can.
I am, once again, not an academic. I'm a journalist making videos on a platform that is very much dictated by metrics, where the numbers don't always reflect the quality of the work, but they do really matter. And that's a tricky landscape to navigate, to fight for people's attention without letting numbers become the only goal. And leaving the story, I keep thinking that researchers are the one group of people who should never have to play by those rules, because their motivations to meet their employers' expectations and journals' motivations to make money have created an opportunity for a potent and dangerous business model for producing junk. And when this part of the internet fills up with junk, it's the people doing some of the world's most important work who suffer. Thank you so much for watching. This has been a really fun and fascinating piece to work on. We are always looking for ideas for future episodes of Tunnel Vision. If you have an idea, I would really encourage you to come and pitch it to us over on New Press. Newpress.com is a new website that I'm helping build with fellow journalists to really bring you into the journalistic process of making these videos from the very beginning. If you have an idea for things that you want to see us cover, or thoughts for how we could cover them differently, or if you want to just be part of the conversation, you should come check us out, newpress.com. Okay, I'll see you there.
See you there, buddy.
You cannot be driving, ma'am. What are you doing? Come on.
I'm not driving. I'm a passenger in a car.
You're still not. I'm not hearing cases with people driving or as passengers in cars.
Okay, I will pull over right now.
Short of us coming out to everybody's house and doing these on boats and stuff in the summer, I don't know.
I'm sorry, I have an emergency. I'm going out of town for a family member, but I will have my driver pull over. Hang on 1 second. I'm sorry. I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to be in a car, but hang on 1 second.
Am I crazy, or does it not look like you're driving that car?
I'm not driving the car. I'm a passenger in the car, sir.
What side of the car are you on?
I'm on the left-hand side.
How would you be on the left-hand side if you're a passenger in the front seat? Am I missing something?
Right-hand side. I'm sorry. I've been sitting in a room. I didn't know.
What?
Yeah, the seatbelt's coming off of the driver's side, right? You're lying to me, right?
No, I'm not, sir.
Sir?
Show me the driver. Let me see the driver.
They don't want to be on camera.
Let me see the driver.
They don't want to be on camera.
Hang on 1 second.
Now.
I have to ask their permission.
Now.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're not in the you weren't in the driver's side. You think I'm that stupid? I'm going to go ahead and enter a default judgment. Our paperwork says that we can't have, that they can't drive. Does it not, Jennifer?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I took a breath in and started choking. Well, I missed.
Does our paperwork not tell people that they can't be in a car?
I don't know, Your Honor. I'd have to look at it again. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Looking at it does not say that I cannot be in a car.
I'm entering a default judgment. You lied to me. Judgment 1921-85. Send me your counsel and put in there defendant was not available at the time and then was driving a car and telling the court she was not. I'm entering a default judgment. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. New York Times takes an architectural look at the coming White House ballroom and finds there is a lot of ornamental stairs to nowhere and faux windows with bathroom stalls behind them. Wait, is it just AI? Wait, there's no way this is a real picture on the White House website. Like, it's not even good AI. It's like shit AI. There's no way, right? Like huge stairs that just lead to pillars? Yeah, why the fuck are there two sets of pillars? Why would you have giant windows that look right out into into your pillars? What?
Think of more Democrats distancing themselves from AIPAC, that is the Israeli lobby. I think everyone who's running for president, although none of them say they are, but they're all the ones who are, including the two Jewish ones, have distanced. That's where Jews are with the Democratic Party these days. Has it become toxic to support Israel? I think it has. For the Democrats.
I think it has. The question is it right?
It's not.
I don't think it is.
No, it isn't.
I don't think it is. And I think that what you're having right now is a lot of people, when we saw what we saw on college campuses, what have you, and a lot of people, engaging in anti-Semitism, let's just call it what it is, that definitely becomes incredibly alarming. But I also think that there's a lot of people out there that got an issue with Benjamin Netanyahu specifically. And unfortunately, they keep castigating the entire Jewish community when they're not realizing there are an abundance of people within the Jewish community that have a problem with his leadership. And they're not differentiating between the two, and that's problematic.
Blappa.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I think it's a much bigger issue than that. I think when you're a Democrat and you don't take money from AIPAC, which they have forever, what you're saying is Israel is a monster country and this is dirty. It's a dirty country and this is dirty money. And that gives permission to a lot of people who are actually anti-Semitic to say, well, you know what, if a Democratic senator won't take their money, this must be a dirty country.
Let's also remember as well that you've got a lot of people that felt like, they're taking this position that Trump was wrong to go after Iran or what have you, but practically every president before him complained about Iran and how Iran needed to be dealt with. But then all of a sudden he doesn't, and it's a big problem. Now, I'm not saying that he's handled it entirely correctly. Please don't get me wrong, because he hasn't. But the flip side to it is that you got a lot of damn nerves to be in the face of American people saying for numerous administrations, Iran is a problem. They have to be dealt with. Iran is a problem. They have to be dealt with. And then this man deals with them, and then all of a sudden you're complaining about him now. Right. It doesn't really make sense. It's a lack of
oh my God.
Would you take a
Actually, it's interesting. I mean, long before October 7th, I stopped taking AIPAC money, not because of Israel or any other issue like that, but because they were giving money to people who had been participating in January 6th. And for me...
Who was giving money to?
AIPAC. They give money to both Democrats and Republicans, and people who had been involved in inciting January 6th, they were giving money to. And as someone who barricaded herself in her office on January 6th, I didn't agree with that. And so back in 2022, that's when I had that kind of conversation. So long before the last couple of years.
Queen.
Convenient for you.
It's not convenient. When you barricade yourself in your office.
I know, but
I mean,
it's not really.
It's pretty real.
I think I can respect that. I certainly respect that. I don't disagree. What I'm saying, the part that I disagree with is that if somebody has been supporting you, not you specifically, but if somebody has been supporting you religiously and you disagree with one thing that they do. All of a sudden, you disassociate yourself from them? That's okay?
I think if it's a fundamental issue of values, yeah. I think if it's the people have disagreements all the time in Washington, but I think, look, I think every single day, at least as an elected official, I have to walk into work and decide, okay, what are the issues that I have to compromise on, right? I'm a Democrat representing a state that voted for Trump. Every day, I'm trying to figure out where are the issues I can work across the aisle and compromise. But I also am thinking about what are the issues where I should never compromise, where I'm going to stand up for values that I believe in. And when it comes to things like trying to overturn an election, that for me was a line that I just wouldn't cross. I wasn't going to compromise on that. And so that's not to be like one thing where we have a disagreement. If you have a fundamental values disagreement with an organization, then you shouldn't take their money.
It's just hard for me to comprehend how we can hear someone on Capitol Hill saying, I have a fundamental disagreement with this one issue. As far as I'm concerned, there should be an abundance of issues that you fundamentally disagree.
Oh my God, kill me, bro. I hate politics.
Agree with somebody about considering the politics that go on Capitol Hill and the inordinate amount of issues that have to be addressed. I'm not saying that wasn't serious. I get that part. I'm just saying it's hard to imagine that one issue would do that, but okay, that's you.
It's hard to, I mean, frankly, I think a larger issue for people is if you are, and this is separate from your reason to do so, but if people are in a fad-based way deciding, oh, is this unpopular? Is this going to get me less likes? And I will then stand for that. That makes me very skeptical about what you'll stand for at all. And that if it's a matter of, if people don't like that I do this, are you simply hiding your hands in the long run and doing what you want? I'm very, very skeptical of any politician who decides what they believe in based on what people give them likes for.
Clap
and that's
Let's
my
get some
larger
claps
issue.
for that.
At the same time, same token, if people have a real reason to deny why they're getting that funding, and if big money can get out of politics more broadly,
big money,
that money does not dictate how
that's not going to happen after Citizens United.
Well, but it ought to happen, and that's the difference of it, and that's where our government really is supposed to be about, bridging the gap between what ought to be and what is.
Yeah.
There we go.